Okay, Julie LaTurner is in the house. I see her. So Julie has loved museums since she was very young. She enjoys exhibits focused on both living and inanimate species, and still feels at home working amongst a collection. She happened to fall into entomology and has been working in the field since 2003, starting in Seattle and making her way to Houston. Her current projects include coordinating the swarms for Oreophates and US-native Dynastes. If you don't know what a swarm is, you'll learn at the tie tag session, I think on Friday. And fine-tuning beetle breeding, especially for the genera. Oh, I'm gonna say it. Phylacronathus. What is it? Phylacronathus and Euchirus. Yeah. When not at work, she can sometimes be spotted wandering at the Houston Museum of Natural Science. She loves bugs, but would also engage in vivid conversations about NASA and the manned space program. I know someone else here that likes that. The animal that Julie would like to see most, she says, quote, seeing a stone lubber would make my day. I've seen one before and they make me laugh. So let's welcome Julie with her talk, Beetle Breeding Adventures at the Houston Zoo 2023 to 2024.
Oh, I'm short. Oh, I don't think that. Okay, can you guys hear me okay? I'm going to take this mask off. Okay. We're going to see how this works without my readers. So let's talk about beetles. I'm going to just go over a real quick overview for you guys, and I am going to need my readers. So we've been making quite a bit of progress over the last year with a few different species, and some of these have become self-sustaining colonies. We'll talk a little bit about our Dynastes swarm. We're slowly establishing that. We've been working on some minor troubleshooting of our Dynastes Hercules beetles, especially with the male pupal cells. We'll talk a little bit about our rainbow stags and our progress with that. How we're experimenting a little tiny bit with amino acids, the supplements, and about our long-armed scarabs. I mentioned briefly last year we might kind of phase those out. Got some updates. This isn't flake soil related, but we do also are breeding Asbolus, the blue death veining beetles. But if you want to know about that, please talk to Cincinnati Zoo. They are in charge of that project. And if you need flake soil recipe, come talk to me and also come visit me tomorrow. All right, so US-native Dynastes. So this is Dynastes tityus, grantee, the eastern, western Hercules beetle children. They officially became a swarm in 2023. It was actually a little bit difficult to establish, not because people weren't interested, but the exact opposite. I had huge interest, but a lot of these people, well, at the time, we didn't know that the native Dynastidae were being removed from needing a permit through the USDA. So I actually turned down quite a few people because these were great institutions that have never been able to participate before, but they didn't have permits. So I was like, oops, yeah, I'll keep you in mind and we'll see if we can figure out a way to work you in. Good thing is now we don't really have to worry about that. So hopefully in the future, we're going to be able to start working some of those other institutions in that were had interest. We've got about 5 institutions that are participating in the tityus side of the swarm, but only 2 with the grantee. So if you are interested in Dynastes grantee, come talk to me, please. And because this species is still taking us personally at the Zoo Houston, they're still taking about a year to get to pupation. Establishing this swarm has been a little bit on the slow side. So it's going to be a while before we really have a lot to talk about, I think. So This number is a little bit low right now. We actually now have over 60 eggs for Dynastes tityus that are starting to hatch, and the same for Dynastes grantii. Now you can understand why I said, hey, come talk to me, please. Yeah, so if you're interested, especially in grantii, come talk to me. We do now have another pair of Dynastes tityus beetles that we're breeding, and that's because I didn't want us to get to a point where we're all having all of our beetles come out at the same time, and then we have like, 6 months of beetles everywhere at institutions, and then splat, nothing, just larvae for another year. So I'm trying to get a better rolling population going. We'll see how that works out. Our rainbow stags. So this has been really kind of exciting. We had our first rainbow stag emerge from pupation back in 2021. So this is something that we've kind of had off and on for a little while now. Our first eggs were laid in their exhibit space, and it was a 50-50 mix of coconut fiber and first round flake soil that we've been making. We've since changed that over to 100% flake soil, and that's what they're in now. We have also added an off-exhibit breeding bin, and that's so that we have better consistency for environmentals, mainly humidity, so everything's nice and even. And that has been working pretty well, we think. This number is a little bit low now. We now have had 25 rainbow stags that we have raised from egg through pupation to adulthood. So we're super excited about it. This colony is not self-sustaining. We are still ordering in, bringing them in, but it seems to be working at least part way. We are going to kind of tweak around with our methods and see if we can get better reliability and better ovipositing from our females. Last year, Tad over at Sophia Sachs talked about experimenting with amino acid supplements, and it's been working really well for his Uticella. So we started acquiring some amino acid supplements, and we tossed half a teaspoon into our larva bin and was like, okay, let's see what happens. Not much, but then we kind of thought, we're like, oh, I went back and read the bottle, and I was like, I think it might be user error. So it's going to sound like I'm trying to compare humans to larvae, and I'm really not. But the bottle talks about the dosage being 1.5 teaspoons 3 times a day for people. The larva bins that we're keeping our rainbow stags in, they're doing semi-communal, larval rearing, but they don't really mess up the soil all that much. So we don't generally have to change out their substrate before they pupate because it doesn't take them very long to grow up. So we're only giving them 1.5 teaspoon dosages, and we think maybe that it's not enough. We typically don't just dig up our larvae for no reason at all, but we think that we may either have to start doing that or potentially maybe just switching brands and see if that helps us out anymore. So yeah, we're gonna kind of tweak around with that and see if we can find a better method for using that for sure. Let's go to another stag beetle. These are our sawtooth stags. This is genus Lamprima. We've been working on breeding these since 2022. So again, we've had a little bit of practice now. We have also added an off-exhibit breeding bin. So they are breeding, like the rainbow stags, they are breeding both on and off exhibit, but the off-exhibit bin, I think, is just affording us better consistency, especially with humidity. Whereas on exhibit, we get really wet pockets and then really dry pockets, and we think that kind of messes up not only just larva or egg development, larva well-being, and then ovipositing too, probably. So Yeah, so we've added that second bin, and that seems to help. And the larvae and the eggs are super tiny. You'll see a picture of the larvae here in a moment. We do semi-communal them like the rainbow stags. We'll put 4 to 5 of these in a bin because they're quite small. So one larva bin is enough for quite a few little larvae. One thing we do also now is we dig out our pupa. So we allow them to pupate in the bin, but then we go through about once a month on a rolling basis and we take the pupa out. And that's because in theory, we should see them when they pupate because they kind of pupate on the side of the bin. We don't always see them. And we don't want to get to a point where we miss somebody because we literally just didn't know that they pupated and they're just hanging out somewhere and we don't see them. So now we remove them and we put them in a bin flat on the surface. Is there some risk in doing that? Yes. But a super majority of our Lamprima eclose just fine, even being on the surface. This colony is now pretty much self-sustaining. I think this fall we're gonna have to bring some in because our numbers kind of dropped, but we really kind of just rely on ourselves to breed these now. So on your right, you've got pupa. And so this is just a little larva bin and we just set our pupa on it. So that's exactly what we do. The one on the top, he closed about 48 hours after we took this picture. You can see the little head cap is starting to form coloration there. They're also quite mobile as pupa. They wiggle around a lot and move around a lot in the bin. But that seems to be pretty normal for them. On the other side, you see this is the larva. That is a crafting paintbrush for scale there. Those are first instars. So very, very tiny. Take a little bit of focus to find in the dirt. All right, our Hercules beetles. So this isn't exactly brand new to us, but we now are getting eggs and larvae on a much larger scale than we used to. Our third instar males have started consistently as larvae reaching 120 grams, a little bit over that. Our females are about 116 or so. We made a small error, we think. We didn't fill our larva bins quite enough once they hit that prepupation phase. And we started getting some males with them scrunched horns, which is what you're seeing here. Sometimes they curl all the way under and sometimes they're just bent just a little bit. We have remedied that. We think what was happening was we weren't filling the bins all the way to the top because we didn't want larvae to break out. So we had a gap, and we think that was making it so that they couldn't build pupal cells big enough to really use up the volume that they needed. So we started filling up those bins, and we think that's making a difference so they can make the volume of the pupal cell that they need to be able to stretch out and for the horn to be straighter than these pictures. So last year we talked about genus Euchirus. This is the long-armed scarabs. So the males have the really crazy long arms and nobody really knows what they use those for. Last year I was like, hey, yeah, we have larvae, but they're not really doing anything. And I was like, we're probably gonna phase these out. Larvae were slow growing, they weren't doing much. But then I came back from the conference and we found this lady. She pupated on the surface, and I was like, okay, now we've got something going. But we still struggled. We have that they're mostly pupating on the surface, or like this, I don't even know what this is about. This is just stuff our head in the dirt and pupate, I guess. And they're all females. So far we have not had any males enter pupation. So we were just kind of like, what is this going on? We're still not really sure. Our survivorship has been low for sure. But at least we're getting them to this stage now. pupa in this picture here, she did actually eclose. She did actually molt into adulthood, but she died shortly after. So still having our fair share of struggles, but then something happened. Finally, something happened right. And at the end of 2023 into the beginning of 2024, we had 4 females that emerged pretty much simultaneously, and we were able to exhibit them all together. As we think that this is the first time anyone in a US zoo has bred these to adulthood. So this was actually really exciting. We did not have a male Dupontianus to put in with them, so we gave them a male Euchirus longimanus for companionship. He did breed with them. Copulation happened. The females did lay eggs, but they were not fertile. So here's a picture of 2 of our 4 females together. So some interesting side notes on behavior with this group. We've exhibited Euchirus before, and we would put them in, and like everything else, they would just kind of scatter all around, do their own thing. This group, these 4 females were always together. They were on the surface together, they were in the dirt together, they ate off the same fruit together, and we gave them plenty of fruit so they could scatter and, be apart. They wouldn't. They would all just like congregate very, very closely. So that was kind of interesting to see. We don't know if that's as anecdotal or not. And then the male would guard a female or 2, and then he'd use his arms and he'd just hold on to the other females. So he was like trying to physically keep track of them all together. Very interesting to watch. We have acquired some more larvae, and we're going to try to raise those to adulthood. And then hopefully in the future, obtain some more adults and try to breed these again. We'll see what happens. Future goals that we are trying to work toward. We want to increase our success with our rainbow stags, both with our numbers and their quality of beetles, whether that's through amino acids or tweaking our environmentals. We hope to utilize our amino acids perhaps in a more beneficial way. We hope to also acquire Gymnos ruckeri, which is a flower beetle from Thailand. We've actually bred that before in Houston. It's been a few years, and we have to add it back onto our new permit. And we're also hoping to work on genus Batacera. Those are the Asian longhorns. We would like to try to breed those. And of course, really, we hope to continue to be a resource for other institutions that are interested in breeding beetles. And hopefully we've been doing all right with that. We are not perfect, but we hope to help as much as we can. And we'd also like to get ideas from people as well. And if you're like, oh my gosh, this is not enough beetle for me, tomorrow at 8:30, we are doing the all beetle, all everything beetle rearing, larva, substrate, everything round table at 8:30. So bring your questions, your anecdotes, your successes, or your findings for sharing.